Is Rabbi Fischer of Young Israel of Orange County. And if you like what you hear, please be sure to forward the link to some other people and please subscribe to my channel as well. I'm here to comment on President Trump's very, very creative idea recently expressed of relocating all the Arabs in Gaza to other locations such as Egypt and Jordan. It's actually a brilliant idea, and it's worth everyone endorsing. It takes somebody who thinks outside the box, way, way, way outside the box, to come up with a common, simple solution. It's so obvious that the only solution to the Gaza situation is to help relocate all the 1.5 million Arabs living in Gaza to places primarily Jordan and Egypt and other Arab countries, Arab Muslim countries. Why is it so obvious? So obvious that nobody can think of it. Well, think about what's been going on in Gaza for decades upon decades. Ever since the first time that Hamas got itself elected in 2005, Israel was essentially all but sovereign in Gaza when foolishly Israel handed it all over to the Arabs in 2005, August 2005, the famous Hitnatkut or disengagement under Ariel Sharon. Suddenly the Arabs of Gaza had the opportunity to live in a Shangri-La. Everybody loves living on oceanfront property. People pay a premium for oceanfront property, and people pay to vacation on oceanfront property. And there they were along the same Mediterranean Sea that Tel Aviv is. Tel Aviv is a gorgeous place. People pay a fortune to live there or to go to hotels along Rehov Yarkon. And there are other places in Israel that are on the Mediterranean Sea. And pretty much everywhere that you have a nice, perfect ocean or sea providing an extraordinarily calm view. So that's what Gaza was. It really was quite pretty. And what happened was the people of Gaza decided that they'd rather, instead of enjoying their land, destroy Israel. You have a chance to have a nice life. And all of Europe, Western Europe, are so kind and giving and loving. They were just pouring millions and tens of millions into Gaza. Qatar and certain other Arab countries poured millions and millions. And no bigger sucker, of course, than the United States of America, who the average taxpayer has no idea what he or she is paying to pump into Gaza. Where does that money come from when a country sends it to Gaza? It comes from the suckers who pay taxes. And we all pay taxes, and we're all suckers. So the money goes into Gaza, presumably to beautify the place. And we hear that they're sending cement and steel to build beautiful buildings and structures and hotels and you name it. And what constantly happens, it's an old movie that gets replayed over and over and over again. It's like the way they replay It's a Wonderful Life every Christmas season with Jimmy Stewart. You can count on it. If there's one thing you can be sure of when Christmas comes, is that every single TV channel on cable is going to have the rights to and will play It's a Wonderful Life over and over again. And the story's always the same. So Gaza is the same thing. For Arabs who want to destroy Israel, it's a wonderful life. And it's always the same ending. What is the ending? Well, to get to the ending, you have to do the rest of the story. The story is that the Arabs take all the hundreds of millions and billions with a B, and all their iron and steel and cement and concrete, and they create bombs, rocket launchers and bombs and missiles and you name it, tanks, rocket-propelled grenades, everything that can potentially destroy Israel. And what do they do with the rest of the steel and the concrete? They build underground tunnels. Instead of building a gorgeous, wonderful Shangri-La, they build another city under the city, like the New York City subway system. How's that been doing lately? And they've got an entire city under the city comprised of these tunnels that are used for terror, to store the weapons and in which terrorists can hide after attacking. And now keep hostages, and they make war. And they always begin effectively by killing anywhere from 50 Jews to 1,000 Jews, 1,200 Jews. Use the word killing, it's incorrect. Murdering. And so they murder 100 Jews, 1,200 Jews, and eventually at some point Israel fights back. Because you have to. Doesn't matter how many leftists are running Israel, or how many centrists, and how many peaceful people. At some point you got to fight back or you end as a country. That's what America did when we were getting attacked by Pancho Villa from Mexico. Eventually, we went to war. That's what every country does when they. What happened to France when Germany invaded around World War I time? They made it World War I. That's what countries do. They fight back. Eventually, even Israel fights back. And then once Israel fights back, it wins. There are a whole bunch of reasons for that. We could play that one out another time. And then in every replay of this movie, Israel, in order to win, it has to be a very unpretty war. Why? Because the way Hamas fights, and this is their strategy, it's always been the same. It's the same in every replay of the movie. They set up their weapons, their launchers, their missiles, their rockets, amid the civilian population. They build them inside hospitals. They load the hospitals with their weapons, and the terrorists base themselves in the hospitals, in schools, in libraries, in mosques, on the rooftops of residential buildings. That's where they put launchers. In Red Cross trucks. They're not called the Red Cross, it's the Red Crescent in the Middle East. And they attack from there. So at some point, if Israel's going to fight back, if you're going to try to take out those launchers and rockets and missiles, what are you going to do? You got to bomb the buildings where they're located, from which they're being shot. Or they set them up on the campuses of the hospitals. So what ends up happening is Israel ends up destroying hospital territory and schools and libraries and the rooftops of residential apartment buildings, because there's no other way to do it. And since the terrorists space themselves inside the hospitals and inside the schools and inside the libraries and inside the mosques, and they put themselves in tunnels that are built under the libraries and under the schools and under the mosques and under the hospitals and under the residential buildings. So it gets very messy, and the left-wing media love to make Israel look terrible, and they bandy about words that have absolutely no application, like genocide. No application whatsoever to these wars. The Holocaust was genocide. What Turkey did to Armenia in 1915, that was genocide. What is being done by Muslims in Sudan to blacks in Darfur, that's genocide. The actual effort to wipe out a people. If Israel wanted to wipe out a people, there'd be no Gaza. If Israel wanted to wipe out a people, they'd be doing the same just about everywhere. There's no problem finding Arabs in the Middle East. Israel does everything possible not to hurt the local population. Israel's proof is its own Arab population. Arabs in Israel sit on the Supreme Court of Israel. They hold every imaginable job. They're judges. A former president of Israel was put into prison because he did some wrong stuff. And the judge who sent him there was an Arab judge. And that was perfectly normal in Israel. No one said, how can an Arab judge be judging a Jewish president of Israel? Arabs treated perfectly equally. If you go there, you see they're treated equally. Arabs and Jews both ride the same buses. They drink from the same water fountains. They go to the same schools. Arabs and Muslims go to the same universities. They get doctorates. They're professors to Jewish students at the universities. And the absurdity of calling it any kind of a bigotry or anything like that. But getting back to Gaza. So Israel does everything she can to avoid hurting the civilian population. Hamas knows it and uses that to their advantage, using human shields. But in the end, Israel wins every time. And it always will win because it's the same movie. So what has been happening since 2005 and Israel's disengagement, having given the Arabs everything they always had asked for. And in return, all they had to do was leave us alone. By us, I mean Jews, Jewish people. Go to war. Israel wins the war. She wipes out all the enemy. Along the way, does quite a bit of damage to Gaza. And what is the world response? To rebuild Gaza. And they give the money and the billions, and they give the iron and steel and concrete, and it all gets rebuilt. More, not rebuilt buildings, more rebuilt launchers and rockets and missiles and lions and tigers and bears, just about. Rockets and launchers and missiles and RPGs and underground tunnels. And there's another war. And Israel sustains murders, and then she comes back and wins the war, and there's mass destruction, and all of Europe and the taxpayers of the United States have to pay tons all over again, so that billions are sent into Gaza, so that Gaza now will have the money and the iron and the steel and the concrete and the cement to build more underground tunnels and rockets and launchers and missiles and lions and tigers and bears. And this has gone on like 5 times. Between 2005 and 2023, in 18 years, something like 5 wars, maybe 6, until the current war, which is the first time Israel showed some real gumption. The citizens of Israel, they've got gumption, whatever gumption means. And the fighters and soldiers are brave and courageous, and they're willing to fight. But the Israeli government, its leaders are cowards, and they cannot stand and fight to victory. It doesn't take greatness and heroism to send boys and girls to their deaths, to fight for their country, and then to sell them out by making a ceasefire and giving back all the people that committed the murders to begin with. But that's the Israel way. Give up 1,000 Arab murderers for 1 Israeli hostage. 10 hostages, 5,000 Arab murderers who will go free, and they too will play the movie again. And it will be the same way again. And they will become the new terrorist leaders. As most famously or infamously or notoriously, Yahya Sinwar was when he was released in the Gilad Shalit deal. So Israel gives up 1,000 Arab murderers in return for 1 guy. Among the 1,000 is Sinwar. He goes and he starts up Hamas. And then you get October 7, 2023, Simchat Torah. Or you get others who go to Judea, Samaria, what some call the West Bank, and then they start up intifadas. And it's over and over and over again the same. And along comes Donald Trump. And Donald Trump says, I'm taking a look at this, and it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm not a politician, says Trump. I'm a businessman. I'm a builder. I'm a developer. I develop hotels and gambling joints, casinos, and golf courses. I'm not a politician. I get things done. And just as you really can seal off the American border if they want to, you just need someone who can do it and get it done. Go ahead and build a wall. And just as you can force countries to take back their criminals and murderers whom they send into the United States, and when they say they won't take them back, you hit them with a 25% embargo, 50% embargo, you take their visas, and before you know it, the same day that they defiantly say they won't take anyone back, they already are saying, oh, we'll send the presidential plane of our country to bring them back. So the same Trump looks at the idiocy of Gaza, a people who essentially democratically elect Hamas. Hamas is their freely voted for elected representative. And they cheer on Hamas and they assist Hamas when Israel says we'll give $5 million to any citizen in Gaza who simply gives us information leading to the arrest and capture of a terrorist murderer, of someone holding a kidnapped person. And no one among the 1.5 million in Gaza claims the $5 million, which comes with it, free and safe passage out of Gaza. No one does it because they're all in it together. Trump comes forward and says, this makes no sense. Why should we rebuild Gaza for the seventh time so that they again can get themselves launchers and rockets and missiles and lions and tigers and bears and underground tunnels? This time, why don't we evacuate everyone from Gaza? All 1.5 million people, because you can't redevelop and rebuild and reconstruct Gaza into something beautiful with 1.5 million people there, basically homeless, uprooted, in the midst of that place having become a parking lot by their own cause for having attacked Israel. And Trump is saying, let's get them all out of the country. Get them all out of Gaza. And instead of sending them to Europe, to Islamize Europe, and turn England and France and Germany and Holland and Spain and all these countries into what they never were, or hadn't been for about 800 years, and have basically turned around Christian Europe into something becoming less and less recognizable. Jews, of course, are fleeing Europe. Take a look at the Jews of France. You can't live there anymore, not for Jews. But French in general, you have to cancel Taylor Swift concerts in Europe, and you have all kinds of stuff going on in Europe. Trump says, this time, let's do it sensibly. Why send people who are Arab and Muslim into European Christendom? Send them to Arab Muslim countries, just like them, where they speak the same language, and they have the same culture, and they have the same religion, and that's the people. And so send them to the most obvious two stop-offs, Jordan and Egypt. Egypt is on the border of Gaza. In fact, Egypt ruled over Gaza from 1948 to 1967. For 19 years, Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt. Egypt ran, controlled, they were sovereign over Gaza. And Jordan had the same deal from 48 to 67 in Judea, Samaria, the so-called West Bank. Those areas that they call Palestine, which is nonsense. It's Israel. Judea, Samaria is part of Israel. There's no such thing as Palestine. It's nonsense. No such thing as Palestinians. They're Arabs in Judea and Samaria. They're Gazan Arabs. They're Judea, Samarian Arabs. No such thing as West Bank. Jesus, in the Christian Bible, walked up and down Judea, Samaria. No Palestine. Jesus was in Bethlehem, Hebron, Jerusalem, all in Judea and Samaria. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were in Bethel and Hebron and Shechem, Nablus it's called now, and Judea, Samaria, going down to Beersheba. And so take them out of these two places, take them out, particularly out of Gaza, and put them in Jordan and put them in Egypt, and it'll be peace. And you can rebuild Gaza, and just as happens when Christmas ends, they start showing other movies besides It's a Wonderful Life. And it's time for a new movie in Gaza. I think President Trump's idea is brilliant. And that's what I wanted to share with you. If you agree, please forward this link. If you disagree, forward the link anyway. And if you would subscribe to my channel, you'll be aware when I put other such